In this video, we'll be going over IRS Form 8615, tax for certain children who have unearned income. Before we begin with this form, please note that there are three sections: the child's unearned income, Part 1, Part 2, the tentative tax based on the tax rate of the parent, and then Part 3, the child's tax. There are a couple of things that you should know about this form. The purpose of this form is to calculate tax liability for certain children under the age of 18 and certain older children whose unearned income is over $2,300. That income is taxed at the parent's tax rate if the parent's rate is higher than the child's. If the child's unearned income is more than $2,300, you will use this tax form to figure their tax responsibility. Unearned income is generally any income other than salaries, wages, and amounts received as pay for work. This might include taxable interest, dividends, capital gains, to include capital gain distributions, rents, royalties, pension and annuity income, taxable scholarship and fellowship grants not otherwise reported on Form W-2, unemployment compensation, alimony, taxable Social Security and pension payments, and income other than earned income received as a trust beneficiary. This tax form must be filed for any child who meets the following criteria. 1. The child had more than $2,300 of unearned income in the tax year. 2. The child is required to file a tax return. 3. The child was either under the age of 18 at the end of the tax year, was 18 at the end of the tax year, but did not have earned income that was more than 50% of their support, or they were a full-time student, at least 19, but under the age of 24 at the end of the tax year, who did not have earned income more than half of their support. 4, at least one of the child's parents was alive at the end of the tax year. And 5, the child does not file a tax return, or a joint tax return. So this tax return should be filed in conjunction with a parent's tax return, and a common question is which parent's return to use. If a child's parents are married filing a joint return, you will use that joint return. For parents who don't file a tax return, if they are married and filing separate returns, you'll use the return of the parent with greater taxable income. If they're married but not living together, and the parent with whom the child lives, also known as the custodial parent, is considered to be unmarried, then you will use the custodial parent's tax return. If the custodial parent is not considered unmarried, you'll use the tax return of the parent with greater taxable income. If the parents are legally separated or divorced, and the custodial parent is not remarried, you'll use the custodial parent's return. If the custodial parent has remarried, then the step parent, not the non-custodial parent, is treated as the child's other parent for tax purposes. So if the custodial parent and the step parent file a joint return, you will use the joint tax return. If they are married but filing separate returns, you will use the tax return with the greater taxable income. If the parents never married each other, but they have lived together all year long, you will use the tax return of the parent with the greater taxable income. If there is a widow that remarried as the parent, then the new spouse is treated as the other parent, and the rules under custodial parent remarried apply. Before we get into part 1, at the top of the tax form will be the child's name, child's social security number. Right under that, in lines A, B, and C, you'll complete the parent's name according to the guidance in the form instructions: first name, middle initial, last name, followed by that parent's social security number and their tax filing status. In part one, we are going to calculate the child's net unearned income. So for line one, you will enter the child's unearned income. This includes all income that was previously stated as unearned income. Do not enter any earned income. If you need assistance, there are worksheets in the form instructions under line one. If your child does not itemize deductions on Schedule A, you will enter $2,300 on line 2. Otherwise, if your child does itemize instructions, there are additional details and guidance on how to calculate the number to input into line 2. For line 3, you'll subtract line 2 from line 1 and enter this number. If this number is 0 or less, you do not have to complete the rest of Form 8615, but you do have to attach it to your child's tax return. For line 4, you'll enter the taxable income from their Form 1040, 1040SR, or 1040NR, line 15. There are additional instructions if the child files IRS Form 2555, which relates to foreign earned income. In line 5, you'll enter the smaller of line 3 or line 4. If this number is 0, stop, but do not complete the rest of the form, but do attach it to the child's tax return. In part 2, we will calculate a tentative tax based on the tax rate of the parent. So in line 6, you'll enter the parent's taxable income from line 1040 or 1040NR, line 15. If this number is 0 or less, enter 0. And if the parent files 2555 for foreign earned income, there are additional instructions. Line 7, you'll enter the total, if any, from other Forms 8615, line 5, for all other children of the parent named above. Do not include this line 5 only if there are other Forms 8615 that apply for other children. In line 8, you will add lines 5, 6, and 7. You must determine the amount of net capital gain and qualified dividends included on this line before you complete line 9. So net capital gains are the smaller of any gains on Schedule D, line 15, or any gains, if any, on Schedule D, line 16. If Schedule D is not required, the net capital gain is the amount on line 7 of your Form 1040. Qualified dividends are dividends reported on line 3A of Form 1040. In line 9, you'll enter the tax on the amount for line 8 based on the parent's filing status above. There are additional instructions, and if you used the qualified dividends and capital gains tax worksheet, the Schedule D tax worksheet, or Schedule J to figure the tax, then you'll need to check the appropriate box. In line 10, you'll enter the parent's tax from line 16 of their Form 1040 or 1040NR minus any alternative minimum tax. Do not include taxes from Form 4972, Form 8814, or any tax from the recapture of an education credit. There are additional instructions for parents who file Form 2555, and if you used either the qualified dividends and capital gain tax worksheet, the Schedule D tax worksheet, or Schedule J, check the box. For line 11, you'll subtract line 10 from line 9 and enter the result. If line 7 is blank, You can also enter this amount on line 13, then go to part 3. For line 12A, you'll add lines 5 and line 7. For line 12B, you'll divide line 5 by line 12A. This amount should be entered as a decimal rounded to at least 3 places. In line 13, you'll multiply line 11 by line 12B. This basically is trying to prorate the total possible taxable income based on your child. And then part 3, we will calculate the child's tax. If lines 4 and 5 above are the same, you'll enter 0 on line 15 and go to line 16. So for line 14, you'll subtract line 5 from line 4, and line 15, you'll enter the amount on line 14 based on the child's filing status. There are additional instructions, and check the box if you used the qualified dividends and capital gain tax worksheet, Schedule D tax worksheet, or Schedule J. In line 16, you will add lines 15 and 13. Add lines 13 and 15 and enter the result in line 16. For line 17, you'll enter the tax on the amount on line 4 based on the child's tax filing status. See the instructions, and if the qualified dividends and capital gains tax worksheet, Schedule D tax worksheet, or Schedule J were used to calculate the tax, check the box. For line 18, you'll enter the larger of either line 16 or line 17, both here and on the child's 1040 or 1040 NR on line 16. There are additional instructions if your child files Form 2555 for foreign earned income. That concludes our overview of this tax form 8615. We've also written an article about it, which you can find on our website. Simply go to teachmepersonalfinance.com, type in IRS form 8615 in the search bar, and you should see our article. If you have any questions about this video or the article, please post them in the comments. If you like our videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you like our article, please subscribe to our newsletter. And as always, thank you very much.